What's up, comic and pop culture fans? This is James with Mint Hunter Comics. Man, it's been a while since I've done a statue review. Of course, this isn't even a full statue, it's a bust. And yet, somehow, it's still the best Batman statue ever. Just got this in today. This is going to go perfectly with my Wonder Woman and my Superman bust that I've got incoming. Before we get into this video, guys, I want you to comment down below who is your favorite DC character from the Trinity, Wonder Woman, Superman, or Batman. Let me know down below, and don't forget to like while you're doing it. Ever since this piece was released, the internet just kind of went crazy. It's by one of the greatest sculptors in the entire statue collecting game, and when we heard that he was going to be making a bigger than quarter scale statue, we were all really excited. Daniel Bell, the sculptor on this, is known for his attention to detail, but he's also really great at dynamic poses. And I'm just going to let you know right now, my biggest beef with this entire statue is that a full-body version doesn't exist. What Sideshow should have done is get Daniel Bell to do, honestly, this piece, but in a more quarter-scale version for their next premium format. I argue that this statue looks a lot better than that premium format that just came out, although I am looking forward to that statue. Guys, normally I do a backstory on the character, but it's Batman. I don't think you would have even clicked on this video if you didn't know who that was. Batman is an extremely rich orphan that likes to punch penguins and crocodiles in the face. So first thing we always do in my reviews, we talk about the base. And so it's funny, there's actually not that much going on this base. It's kind of a smaller base, but it's certainly a lot more than what's going on the Wonder Woman base. This one's got little stone bats coming out of it. It's pretty cool. And the bats don't look like an actual organic bat. They look like they're stone. It is interesting how they have this rocky, gaseous base that kind of molds into Batman, and you actually really notice it around the back. You see where his cape molds into stone at the bottom, and it just looks fantastic. The way they transition just really looks really good. And by the way, this is skipping a bit, but the fabric work on this cape is amazing. It's a very tiny footprint base, which makes me happy. This is going to fit really well. So, you know, I'm going to give it the full 10 out of 10. Very nice job, Sideshow. Very nice job, Daniel Bell. Up next, we're going to talk about the paint, the sculpt, and the colors. Probably the most important aspects of a statue. Batman statues are always plagued by a rough color scheme because you're really dealing with, you got grays, you got blacks, maybe you use shades of blues. But the interesting thing is, this uses everything nicely. I can see the nice black shading with the blue. With the very top of his head is a lighter shade of blue. The bottom is a very more stone texture look, and a really good use of the colors to make it look like a stone texture. His arms look well defined. It looks like it's been easily thought out of, and the musculature on this is some of the best muscles I think I've ever seen. The anatomy is essentially, I think, as perfect as you can probably get on this. I really like the color scheme of Batman. Sometimes you run into that, is he going to be gray, is he going to be blue? It's a nice bluish gray. There's just the right amount of blue tint in this Batman statue to really make me love this. It's worth noting that I don't see a smidge of overpaint or staying outside of the lines through this whole piece. It almost looks as if I have a prototype. The paint is that good. This is the type of statue that I don't think I could ever sell. It's so good that it's almost worth contacting some custom sculptor to make a second bottom half for me and just Frankenstein this into one huge statue. Unfortunately, I only collect quarter scale unless it's busts, so I'm not going to actually be doing that. His teeth look amazing. The musculature on the face and the cowl looks perfect. There is actually nothing I would change about this piece as a whole. You guys know I have kind of a tendency to be a little bit harsh in my statue reviews, but I don't have anything negative to say for the paint, the sculpt, and the most challenging, the colors. Again, for Batman piece to not get dinged for colors is saying something. Paint, 10 out of 10. Perfect sculpt, 10 out of 10. And congratulations on the colors, a 9 out of 10. So up next, we're going to talk about design and pose. Obviously, since I'm dealing with a bust, it's going to be a little bit different this time. The pose is fantastic. It's very different than the Wonder Woman, who was a little bit more of a stationary pose. Let me bring her out. This is the Wonder Woman from the same line. It is the same scale. And while I remember gushing over that Wonder Woman, I gotta tell you, this is the better statue hands down. The one thing that's a little bit tricky and could get dinged a little bit design-wise is it's a much taller piece than the Wonder Woman. Because of that batarang, it actually stands kind of tall and is a lot higher than Wonder Woman. So if you were basing some sort of display space based off of your Wonder Woman bust, which came out months earlier, you know what, you're gonna need a bigger display case because this one's a lot taller. The one thing about the pose that's really interesting is I like the arm going back. It looks very natural. I like the way he's looking to the left, and I think it's going to help with the composition once I have all three busts together. One interesting decision, but I understand it, is there is no left arm. They just completely left it out. There's also nothing below, even below his rib cage. But you know what? Despite the fact that there is no left arm, you don't even notice it. There's absolutely no sense that it's missing anything. The statue feels absolutely complete. I was always super impressed, and I'm actually looking at it over the camera. I'm looking at my new 52 Batman over there, and I always thought that was a perfect piece, and I think this one's better. We're going to give the design an 8 out of 10. While it does have perfect flow and perfect composition, the fact that it is twice the size of Wonder Woman really causes you to have to scramble for a different shelf space. Pose is actually going to get the full 10 out of 10. The way they pose the cape in the background, how his hands up, even the positioning of the batarang looks perfect. Very natural, it flows beautifully. Next up, we're going to talk about coolness and likeness. And while this ain't no Swamp Thing maquette giant statue or anything like that, this is probably the highest likeness to Batman I've ever seen in a statue. Obviously, you have movie statues that go off of movie likeness, but a comic book-based statue? This looks like it was based off of maybe Jason Fabok or David Finch or Jim Lee, something like that. I love the length of the ears. I love the grittiness of his teeth and the determination in his face and his forehead. It's just perfect. It is so Batman. I think that this is the most definitive Batman look I really have seen, guys. So coolness, well, you know what? It's going to be impossible for this coolness to get the highest grade, but it is going to get a 9 out of 10, which is pretty impressive to give to a bust. Likeness, I'd give it an 11 out of 10 if it could, but we're going to give it a really respectable, perfect 10 out of 10. Next up, I really wanted to talk about proportions because a lot of people want to know what scale this is, and it's not what you think. Is this 1/4? No, it is taller than a 1/4 scale. Is it 1/3? No, it is smaller than a 1/3 scale. So it's right in between 1/4 and 1/3. Luckily, the Wonder Woman and the Superman are the exact same height, so it can't get possibly knocked. They're sticking to a scale, clearly. It's just a little bit of an odd scale that most people don't collect. It's definitely a standalone series, but if you did want to just get Batman, you can. It does work well if you have the Wonder Woman and the Superman. I would love if they did a Green Lantern and all that, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. So let's go ahead and give those proportions a nice oddball, but still 10 out of 10. It works. And now we're going to talk about price, and here's where we get dinged a little bit. It's a little bit of an oddball price. The fact that it was over $250 is very strange to pay that much for a third of a statue, right? And the Wonder Woman cost the same. I really think, and I said it then, I'm going to say it again, this should be $200 or under. Throw in tax and shipping, you're basically at $300 for this piece, and I gotta tell you, despite how perfect this is, $300 is pretty tough. Now with it in person, I can say this is worth it, but be careful, Sideshow. This is really squeezing as much as you possibly can. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10, despite it being the bang for your buck. It's pretty expensive for a tiny fraction of a statue. So that's the review, guys. This video is not going to be nearly as long as some of my past review videos. I mean, how can it? It's probably going to be a third of the length, since this is a third of a statue. If you want some of the best Batman likeness that you can buy, you're going to want to get this. If you're tripped up by the fact that it's just a bust and not a full-blown statue, that's up to you. I know I personally juggled with getting the bust line for a while, and I just decided to do it. But that's maybe because I have a spending problem. Thanks again, guys, and as always, keep on collecting.